And Brendan's going to start recording the Spanish, and I'm going to hit broadcast, and that's going to let people in. Let's give everybody 30 seconds to join us.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, people are joining. That's great to see. Welcome, everyone. All right, we're just giving a few more seconds for people to join the meeting. Thank you for being here on your Saturday at noon on this beautiful day in Petaluma. Really appreciate you being out here and sharing your afternoon with us, and we'll get started very shortly. Thank you.
Hoy, gracias por estar aquí, gracias por pasar un sábado.
Okay, and I think it's good. I think we can get started, and more people will join us as the meeting goes along.
Thank you, Patrick. Well, welcome everybody. My name's Ann Baker. I'm the commission chair, and I'm here to open this meeting today, which is our first town hall, introducing our climate action framework. I'd like to especially thank all of our community volunteers for all their hard work, city staff, city council, all the people that have worked to pull this together, especially our engagement ad hoc committee. I'd also like to acknowledge that we are here today on the traditional lands of the Coast Miwok people. And I'd like to introduce the three members from the commission who are on the engagement committee and let them begin the meeting in their own words. So Kyla Frederick, Jean Gurr, and Kendall Webster.
Excuse me, can we do roll call first?
Oh yes, roll call.
Baker?
Here.
Bartholomew? Frederick?
Present.
Gurr?
Present.
Orrit?
Here.
Webster?
Here.
Fisher?
Here. Do you want to call Bartholomew again?
Yeah.
Bartholomew?
He looked like the
audio.
just being joining, yeah.
Panama, can you say present?
Present.
Okay, roll call concluded. Now I'd like to introduce the members of the engagement committee, Kyla Frederick, Jean Gare, and Kendall Webster.
We're actually going to turn it over first to Patrick, who's going to give a bit of an overview around the various functions of the Zoom webinar today, and also walk us through the different points of the presentation before we get started.
Great, thank you, Kalia. And just as a reminder, this is a special meeting of the Climate Action Commission, so we will be holding general public comment shortly, but as Kalia mentioned, we wanted to let everybody know how we're trying to make this a little more interactive than most meetings. You'll notice at the bottom of your screen, at least if you're on a Windows machine, I think it's at the top for Macs, there's a Q&A function. And if that functionality allows you to ask questions to us, we're going to try to take as many questions on this process live as we can. But if there are other questions, you feel free to use that functionality at the Q&A button at the bottom and ask your questions there. And any questions we don't get to live, we will be putting on the Climate Action Commission's website. So, for the folks that registered for this meeting and indicated an interest in receiving future updates on this process, we will be emailing that the results of those Q&A out to everyone. So we're trying to have as many opportunities for you to comment and to receive answers from the commission on this as possible. So with that, I think I'm going to share my screen so that you can see our website. Just one second. And this may be not new information for those of you that have already registered for this, but this meeting is being recorded and it will be placed on the Climate Action Commission's website, which is at cityofpetaluma.org/climate-action-commission. And this has a bunch of information about the commissioners, their positions, the subcommittees that they're involved with, and also the draft climate emergency action framework. There's a link to it there. There's a survey that is live now in both English and Spanish that we're really hoping that you will take a few minutes of your time to participate in if you haven't already, and give us feedback. And basically, we're really looking to set a baseline for where Petaluma is right now on climate action knowledge and getting some priorities going forward. And this process that we're undergoing is all about the community feedback, because as much time and effort and hard work as our commissioners have put into this framework that's drafted and on the website now, it's not going to mean much if it doesn't mean much to the community. So we really need your input, and we really want you to be a part of this process. So there's information, as you can see on the survey. There's the notice of this meeting here, and the framework itself. So please take some time and take a look at that website, and we really strongly urge you to participate in that survey. You'll be getting more information as we do the presentation on this item later today also. But again, just to kind of wrap up, the Q&A function is there. Please feel free to use it, and just know that at the we'll be taking general public comment very shortly, and then also at the end of the presentation, we'll be doing some live Q&A as well. So lots of opportunity for comment and feedback. Combining words there. Really appreciate you all being here right now. I'll stop sharing, and I'd recommend to the chair that we move into general public comment and then get the rest of this meeting started.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. All right, let's open the public comment then, please.
Great. So members of the public wishing to speak on items not on this agenda, so anything other than the climate emergency framework or the survey, please feel free to use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen to let us know that you wish to speak on items that are pertinent to the Climate Action Commission. We'll call on you on turn. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, and at the end of which we will mute, or when your comments are done, we'll mute. And just for folks to understand, you know, this is a public meeting, so it's generally for comments to let us know what you're feeling and what your concerns are. But the general public comment is not typically for a back and forth Q&A kind of thing. We'll be doing more of that later on the Climate Action Framework. So with that, I see 2 members of the public wishing to speak, Beverly Alexander and Taryn Obaid. So I will bring up the timer and then unmute Beverly. And Beverly, you may unmute yourself and begin speaking. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm really happy that there is a Climate Action Commission. And I'm wondering if there are any plans for having any teeth for the Climate Action Commission. And a couple of ideas I had, or at least one, was that in addition to new developments going through the Planning Commission, that they would go through the Climate Action Commission as well for approval. And that hopefully that approval would not be appealable, but maybe it would be. And the other thing is that I thought that it would be good if new projects could be given some kind of a score by the Climate Action Commission as to how beneficial they were. So maybe, you know, from 1 to 10 or from A to F. that, you know, even if there even wasn't sort of a veto power, at least there would be some acknowledgement that was really clear as to what degree a project was in alignment with the climate action framework or goals or whatever. And the other thing I wanted to comment on was I discovered there was a river enhancement plan, and I'm wondering if the Climate Action Commission has been looking at that and seeing what we can do to implement the ideas in there, which many of which seem to have been either ignored or swept under the rug. So anyway, that's all I have to say right now, and I am really happy you are there. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Next speaker is Taryn Obaid. So Taryn, you may unmute yourself and begin speaking. Taryn, are you there?
Hi, here I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Climate Emergency Commission. You are our ray of hope. And you should know every minute you spend doing this amazing work, you are so greatly appreciated. I, as a concerned citizen, have been spending some time really looking at the root cause as to what's going on with our city. And it's apparent to me that that there are varying degrees of awareness of what is going on with our city. And in my opinion, I am a Six Sigma trained analyst. In my opinion, when I get to looking at the root cause, what I see going on is that we're really at war. We're at war with the development industrial complex. And I don't say that lightly. I say that after digging into campaign contributions, campaign consultants that were paid by developer-funded city council majority, for a consultant that specializes in political consulting and developer consulting. So there is really a development industrial complex. And I really want to make this point because in war, you have to know your enemy. And as we look towards development of our and growth of our city, looking at it as like maybe a monopoly game, don't just look at the board. The board itself is being manipulated by back channel negotiations and interests. And when we look at a general plan and the zoning, know that in the future, the zoning for adjacent properties and areas is going to be trickery for getting development through. There are multiple levels. And as an example, I just wanted to share that in the most recent Planning Commission meeting, they approved Riverbend, which cuts down every single tree on the property. And none of the commissioners even batted an eye. This includes heritage trees that are hundreds of years old, and there was no flood analysis done. This kind of thing is allowed because the M group is paid by development fees, right? They get a 45% premium over their hourly rate for all development work that they do. Know the enemy because they are trying to stop us at every point. Sorry to sound so serious, but this is very serious for our future. Thank you so much for your good work.
All right, so that is the last hand I have raised, Madam Chair. So at this point, I believe we can close public comment.
Great, let's close the public comment.
And I will stop my screen share.
Great.
If I may, Madam Chair, I think I'd like to address the first speaker's questions and comments. I know I said we weren't going to make this a back and forth, but I think just a little bit of comment may be helpful at this point. The Climate Action Commission is a policy advising body, so it is not currently in the queue for project review, like the Planning Commission is. There's no process to go from, say, the Climate Action Commission to the Planning Commission, then to the Council for ultimate project approval. The Climate Action Commission is mainly a body for saying, okay, a policy on this issue would be helpful, and then that would be applied to all the other review. I'm sorry, Panama, can you mute yourself? I'm getting a little bit of feedback from you. Thank you. So it wouldn't be that process that was mentioned by the first speaker isn't something that would be happening now, but a policy of having like a climate scorecard could be something that this commission could recommend to the council, and then the council could take that up. So just wanted to put that out there, just so we kind of have an understanding of expectations and how the process works currently, which is not to say it couldn't change in the future, but that's just where we are right now. So thank you, Madam Chair. I'm done with my comments here.
Thank you. I think we can move to the next agenda item, which I believe is the presentation.
Yes. So, would you like me to share my screen, Framework Committee? I will do that now. Oh, shame on me. I don't have it open. Here we go. There we go. All right. Does that look good, Kalia?
It does, and perhaps you could shift into present mode so we can get rid of the text on the bottom.
Okay, I will try to do that. My screen shows it all the way. I'll try that again.
Patrick, you should be able to hit switch presenter modes at the top of the screen. Do you have two?
No, I just
monitors?
have one screen. I just have one screen, but let me put it in the slideshow from beginning. Is it still showing with text?
Yes.
Please stand by.
I think at the bottom of the screen, Patrick, I think there's a icon you can touch there too.
Yeah, that usually does the trick.
Oh, I see.
Someone just sent in the Q&A, try Alt tab.
That's usually switches screens. Oh. Does that look any different?
Not yet.
That's very strange.
Alternatively, you could just minimize the notes. So if you grab them and drag them to the bottom.
The problem is I don't see what you're seeing. I see the full screen on mine, so.
I don't see the notes now.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
So that looks like it works. Okay, we'll go with this then.
Close
It's
enough.
not in full presenter mode.
Yeah.
Well, let's get started anyways. Welcome. My name is Kailea Frederick, and this is the Petaluma Climate Action Commission's presentation on the Climate Emergency Framework. We are excited and grateful for the opportunity to share an overview of the vision we have been crafting over the past 6 months. This presentation is an invitation to our broader community as part of making sure that this process remains collaborative and inclusive. And this is one of the first of many conversations we hope to be having with our broader community. Our goal is to not only have a framework that is accepted by the community, but driven by it. Throughout this presentation, there are going to be several opportunities for reflection around what you love about Petaluma and where you want to grow change. And we hope you can take this time to really reflect in the possibility that we're all holding for the better world we know is possible. The Climate Action Commission has been tasked with fully addressing current and future impacts here in Petaluma. Our work in this framework are driven by the urgency of a rapidly shifting Earth and how it directly and indirectly affects all of our lives. So we need to take immediate action here in Petaluma and across the globe in order to stabilize the climate for our own safety and well-being, as well as for future generations. If you could go to the next slide, please, Patrick. So as part of leading with a climate justice lens, we want to first acknowledge that we are guests on the land of the Coast Miwok Nation. Our initiatives seek to honor and establish respectful relations with local Native communities. We will strive to understand, highlight, and learn from their traditional ecological knowledge and values, concerns, and priorities. Next slide, please. So just to give a little context and history around how this commission came to be established, Petaluma's goals are to reduce climate changing greenhouse gas emissions citywide and bring our emissions down to zero. In doing this, we will achieve carbon neutrality in connection with the state's mandate, as well as contribute to addressing climate change on a global scale. The Petaluma City Council adopted a climate emergency resolution in May of 2019. The resolution sets a goal of becoming a carbon neutral city no later than 2045, and our regional climate protection authority sets the goal for Sonoma County to achieve carbon neutrality no later than 2030. The responsibility for the city's plan and actions related to the climate emergency rests with our commission, the Climate Action Commission, which was established through this resolution. Climate Action Petaluma, also known as CAP, a group of local activists and organizations who meet frequently to plan for solutions and actions to address climate change, requested the city of Petaluma consider adopting a climate emergency resolution and engage actively in solutions to help our community. Petaluma is joining cities like Oakland, Berkeley, and Richmond in declaring that climate change is an emergency to be tackled by all levels of government. This framework is about working to secure a healthy and sustainable future for our city, state, nation, and global communities. Next slide, please. So as many of you are well aware, climate impacts are greatly increasing. The following here are some of the risks associated with inaction. So food insecurity, infrastructure failures, collapse of ecosystems, dire public health impacts, and continued economic shock. Even in our best case scenario of only a 1.5 degrees Celsius increase, which is about 3 degrees Fahrenheit, includes exposing 1 in 6 people to life-threatening extreme heat every 5 years. The Arctic Sea will have no ice at least every 100 years, and the seas will rise nearly 1.5 feet. And then at a temperature increase of 4 degrees Celsius, so this is about 9 degrees Fahrenheit, Southern Europe will be a desert. Agriculture will only be possible in latitudes north of the US, and the sea life that so many of us depend on for food will continue declining and die off. So knowing what's at stake and following the call from global scientists, our goal here within this commission is to lessen impacts here in our own home. Next slide, please. So we also need to course correct not only for our local community, but for our global community. Our work to combat climate change here benefits the people and places we don't see across the globe, and we have a duty to respond quickly and intentionally for all of our benefits. Although the issues are mounting and pressing, we believe that education is a key first step towards finding our way forward. The climate emergency framework is about the community of Petaluma taking actions that will reduce the severity of present and future climate change induced impacts and building into a healthier future where there's resources for us all. So here on this slide, we are presenting a concept called the Quadruple Squeeze, which is a way to understand the multiple and challenging puzzle pieces we are working with. The Quadruple Squeeze attempts to understand the intersection of the following: population growth, climate change, ecosystem decline, and surprise. And I'm going to pass it over now to Commissioner Gurr.
Hi, everyone. Patrick, next slide, please. So the state of California has committed to addressing and preventing these risks that Commissioner Kylie Frederick listed earlier. Before Governor Brown left office, he set the wheels in motion for California to achieve the unprecedented goal of a zero carbon economy by 2045. This included signing Senate Bill 100, which was authored by Senator Kevin De Leon. This commits California to achieving 100% clean electric grid by 2045. Also, cities throughout California, as well as other parts of the US, are also developing their own climate responses. And our intention is to move forward both compassionately and strategically in alignment with other local initiatives, including with the Sonoma County's Regional Climate Protection Agency's responses, as well as other local governments in California. Next slide, please. Okay, so that brings us to why we're here today, the Petaluma's Climate Emergency Framework. So our framework seeks to engage our residents in prioritizing actions, policies, and programs to recommend to the city as part of our goal to reach carbon neutrality. And our framework is divided into 4 separate sections. The first being equity and climate justice, then community engagement, and then adaptation and resilience, and lastly, mitigation and sequestration. The remainder of our presentation seeks to provide an overview of main points from the framework, including Petaluma's current greenhouse gas emissions, the climate impacts we're already experiencing, and tangible solutions that we see on our horizons. So currently, the current draft of the framework has been written by our commissioners who are here today, as well as an incredible group of volunteers that has worked tirelessly with us to have the framework draft to where it is right now. And the completed framework will guide the creation of the city's climate action plan for 2021. And it's really important for us to note in the beginning of this presentation that we're experiencing 4 concurrent crises. We're experiencing COVID-19 right now, we're experiencing racial injustice, economic breakdown, and our climate emergency. And within each of these threads, we see parallel and overlapping systemic injustices. In acknowledging this, we have an opportunity to address these crises by divesting from systems that harm our well-being and move towards systems that prioritize community health and prosperity. This is why our framework in this presentation places such an emphasis on addressing climate action first and foremost through a lens of intersectionality, specifically leading with climate justice. Next slide.
Jean, if I can just interrupt really quickly.
Yeah.
I think I failed to mention at the beginning of this that we are simultaneously broadcasting in Spanish as well. And just a reminder that Martine, who's translating for us,
Please move slowly.
Yeah, needs a little more time. So you're doing great, but just a little bit slower would be appreciated by him. Thank you.
I definitely will. My apologies for that. I talk really fast, so I'm sorry. Okay, so we are here at our timeline. So just wanted to give everyone an idea of where we're headed. So after this presentation and when the survey, which we will explain more about later in our presentation, is closed, we're going to be doing a final report back of our engagement efforts and discuss with the commission about how engagement went and how the framework should be amended at our August meeting. Here at this meeting, we're also planning to direct an ad hoc subcommittee to incorporate community input and consolidate the 4 chapters into a cohesive draft. In September, we are hoping to approve the final draft of the framework and submit it for City Council to review. In October, we will be presenting the framework to the council. We'll be doing a council presentation and considering a possible consult and budget amendments. In November, we will be reviewing feedback from City Council, and we would be directing ad hocs to propose policies and actions from that feedback for the first draft of the climate emergency plan. And then in December, we will review what the ad hocs have proposed and provide comment and direction to those ad hocs. So that is where we're headed for the rest of this year. Oh, next slide, please. And your voice matters. Our engagement plans include gathering input from our survey, virtual town hall meetings, as well as dialogues with community leaders for this framework process. We plan to get the word out utilizing various channels, including newsletters, mailers, water bill inserts, and social media to reach as many community members as possible. Our goal is to create a framework that is inclusive and representative of all voices in Petaluma, starting here with this presentation and with your voice. Next slide, please. So our goal is to make Petaluma a resilient city as well as a hub of adaptation and preparedness. Meeting our climate challenges head-on will yield benefits and improve social equity, the creation of a wide range of green jobs, a healthier community, and a brighter future for our children and their children. By starting now, we can work towards successfully supporting people and businesses. We can create a more sustainable, walkable, healthy, and resilient place to call home. We can also support habitat preservation and the ability of birds, pollinators, and wildlife to adapt, find nutrition, fresh water, and areas to live and move as we protect habitat and wildlife corridors. Here on our screen, we pose 2 questions we would like you to hold throughout the rest of this presentation. And that is, in your neighborhood, what do you love and what do you want to protect? And what changes do you want to see for our city? Next slide, please. So using a lens of social, racial, and economic equity when addressing climate change. Our commission is very committed to using this multidimensional lens in all of our efforts. We will be looking at how we can slow down climate change as well as adapt to it. Our main pathways for slowing down climate change are through 1, mitigation or opportunities to take action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. 2, sequestration or capturing carbon from the atmosphere to store in the soil through trees and compost. While 3, adapting or finding ways to adjust to the impacts of climate change. The rest of our presentation points back to these goals where engagement and education are integral to addressing them. Next slide, please. And for those of you who are new to climate justice and intersectional environmentalism, we brought a great definition here by Leah Thomas, and I'm just going to read the slide. This is an inclusive version of environmentalism that advocates for both the protection of people and the planet. It identifies the ways in which injustices happening to marginalized communities and the earth are interconnected. It brings injustices done to the most vulnerable communities and the earth to the forefront and does not minimize or silence social inequality. Intersectional environmentalism advocates for justice for people and the planet. Next slide, please. So essentially, we know that climate change affects us all, but it impacts marginalized communities, including low-income communities and communities of color, the most as a result of ongoing systemic injustices. In Petaluma, we need to identify places and neighborhoods that are affected by unhealthy conditions that are produced by these continuing inequities. This framework urges the city to focus first on the needs of community members experiencing public health issues like shelterless conditions, housing instability, food insecurity, as well as exposure to heat islands and poor water and air quality. In particular, our Latinx and senior community members have continuously been disproportionately hit in emergencies like this current pandemic. We need to hold a lens of climate justice and intersectional environmentalism as an ongoing and necessary step in bridging sustainability and overall community well-being. Some socioeconomic and environmental factors that continue to be unequal include air and water quality, housing and transit, education, employment, income, family and social support, and community safety. So now I'm going to pass the mic to Commissioner Bartholomew for talking about some of the sources of the greenhouse gas emissions here in Petaluma.
Wonderful. Thank you, Commissioner Gare. And I just want to extend my thanks to the engagement subcommittee. You did a wonderful job in putting this whole event together, and to staff, and then to the community that came out today. So thank you, everybody, for joining us on this Saturday to talk about these critical issues. I'm going to talk about where the emissions are coming from currently in Petaluma, or the challenge before us. And there are multiple gases that contribute to the greenhouse effect, which causes global warming. And what you see on the screen here is those emissions produced across different sectors in Petaluma from 2010 to 2015, expressed in carbon dioxide equivalent. Carbon dioxide is really the highest concentration in the atmosphere, but there are other emissions such as methane. And so we look at it from a carbon dioxide equivalent, and that's what you see here on the screen. In the green, you see the 2010 emissions from different sectors, left to right, on-road transportation, building energy use, solid waste, off-road transportation like construction projects, and then water and wastewater treatment. And then in the yellowish color, ochre really, you see the 2015 emissions from the city. And so you can see some of the trends that have been happening since 2010 and 2015. And the county is just about to release the 2018 numbers. So we'll have even more updated numbers, but you can see where our greatest challenges are based on the screen. Next slide, please, Patrick. But that is a sector-based way of looking at it. And so that is looking at, directly from the tailpipe or directly from the source. And so we just saw those emissions at the city scale, but let's look at emissions from, say, the household scale. What do all of us through our actions create? Some of these emissions come directly from the car that we drive or the gas that we use to heat our home or, say, to cook a meal. But many of the indirect emissions are produced from how we behave as consumers, and those are called consumption-based emissions. So the last slide was more sector-based emissions, and what you see here on this slide is really consumption-based emissions. What are the emissions that come from our actions and as consumers? And so we're going to take our first poll. I got selected to do the first poll. So we're going to initiate a poll, and we want you to take a look at this: transportation, housing, food, goods, services, and take a moment to reflect on which of these greenhouse gas emissions do you contribute to the most in your daily life out of all these categories. So Patrick, can you help us initiate a poll, please?
Yeah, so please just answer question 1. I think it may have given you a chance to do all of them, but let's just do question 1 for this one, please. So you should have had the ability to take this poll. There should be an option down near the bottom of your screen to do this. And so we'll give another 30 seconds. It looks like some people are going to do all of them. We're just looking at question 1 at this point, but that's okay.
People are excited to be here.
They want to take these polls.
I love that.
Appreciate the enthusiasm. All right, another 20 seconds and then we'll move on.
Can we live broadcast the results from the first poll?
I will see how that will be able to be done. I think I can share the screen if nothing else.
So Patrick, we're hearing in the question and answer that they can't submit without answering all the questions.
Ah, okay. Well, that is a flaw in this polling program, so we apologize for that. I'll see if there's a way we can open it back up later.
Okay. Well, that was really an overview of emissions from a sector-based perspective for Petaluma and then consumption-based emissions. And you'll see in the framework that we cover potential mitigation measures for both how we deal with sector as well as consumption. The next 3 slides highlight a few of the climate-induced impacts that we're already facing that our framework has taken into consideration. And with that, I hand it off to the next commissioner to take this on. Thank you.
So really quickly, I'll be able to relaunch the polling later. So if you want to just answer them all right now, you'll be getting a little bit ahead of us, but you can change your answers later if you change your mind on that. So I can share the results now if you'd like, but maybe it'd be better to see it later on.
Let's share the results at the end of the presentation.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, can I take the next slide, please?
There we go.
All right. Hey, everybody. It's good to see all of you. So, year after year, we have experienced more frequent and longer periods of drought. Evidence from tree ring data indicate that for the past 19 years, the American West has been experiencing a mega drought. According to the tree ring records, the only other period of 19 consecutive years of drought occurred in the 1500s. Moreover, the current mega drought that we're experiencing here in the West is twice as large as it would have been without human-caused climate change. Droughts impact our human systems, most notably agriculture, and the ecosystems that we and all the other species rely on. So it's also a major contributor to increasingly frequent wildfires, and I will go to the next slide, please. So Petaluma is undergoing shifts in weather patterns as a result of climate change. Drought and warming temperatures have led to increasing frequency of wildfires in our region. Wildfires have forced our friends and neighbors to evacuate and/or lose their homes and have caused prolonged power outages. The loss of homes has exacerbated the housing crisis that our region is known for and continues to place stress on those experiencing shelterless conditions. The smoke generated by wildfires is hazardous to our health and imperils children, elders, and those who are pregnant or already dealing with latent health issues. Over the last 3 years, Petaluma has become the North Bay city that welcomes evacuees. Better preparing for our lengthening fire season by providing infrastructure and services to evacuees is part of how we will adapt to climate change. Next slide. We have also been experiencing more frequent flooding. Flooding will increase in frequency and intensity with sea level rise, increasingly frequent atmospheric rivers, and loss of soil permeability, or the ability of vegetation and soil to absorb stormwater. You might be wondering how sea level rise will affect Petaluma as we live inland from the bay. In fact, the Petaluma River is a tidal slough channel connected to the bay. So as polar ice caps melt and water levels of the bay rise, so too will the Petaluma River. This will be especially impactful to the neighborhoods next to the Petaluma River. Therefore, I encourage everyone watching this presentation today to look up the flood risk for where you live. There's an online tool that combines FEMA flood mapping and sea level rise projections to provide an estimate of flood risk by property address. This tool is called floodfactor.com. You just go to that website and type in your address to see the flood risk for where you live. This is important as flooding can have big impact on our homes and businesses, and knowing your risk will help you prepare. I'm going to give you a moment to write down that web address. Again, it's floodfactor.com. All right, next slide. So, as you've heard already, we need to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases we emit to zero. This will require mitigation measures. But what is mitigation? Mitigation, or reducing climate change, involves reducing the flow of heat-trapping greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, either by reducing the sources of these gases, for example, the burning of fossil fuels, or enhancing the sinks that accumulate and store these gases, such as forests. And the goal of mitigation is to reduce significant human interference with the climate system and stabilize greenhouse gas levels in a time frame sufficient to allow ecosystems to adapt naturally to climate change, ensure that food production is not threatened, and to enable economic development to proceed in a sustainable manner. We need to sequester carbon. So carbon sequestration is a process of capturing and storing atmospheric carbon dioxide. And this is one of the ways of reducing the total carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And importantly, we need to adapt to the impacts of climate change, which already overwhelm us. Science tells us that these impacts, including drought, wildfire, extreme heat, and flooding, will worsen in the near future and without any known upper limit. So this is even with the positive changes that we hope to make through mitigation. We need to make Petaluma resilient by preparing for the impacts of climate change before they cause billions of dollars of loss to our city. And I will hand over the mic to Commissioner Baker.
Thank you, Commissioner Webster. So I'm going to talk about and present some of the emerging solutions that we were hearing in our different committees and that we're really seeking your feedback and interest on. And one of our main approaches that has been emerging through talking about land use changes to support less use of fossil fuels and adaptation is to really focus on implementing nature-based solutions. Because nature-based solutions work with nature and have multiple benefits. And working with nature helps solve our problems faster. For example, if we can align our parks and our streets and our stormwater systems into more natural and living drainage patterns using things like rain gardens, we can reduce cost of gray infrastructure systems and reduce water and air pollution. At the same time, we can store rainfall in the soil for plants and reduce erosion in streams. We can improve habitat connectivity, and we can take carbon out of the atmosphere. Similarly, restored wetlands and floodplains, like implementing the river enhancement plan that one of the community members spoke about in the beginning of the meeting, will protect our rivers and streams from erosion. We won't have to dredge quite so often, and also protect us from flooding. And these natural ecosystems are flexible and adaptive, and they're better able to handle sea level rise than hard infrastructure systems. Can I have the next slide, please? To get moving in the direction we need to go, we need to invest now in affordable, clean, active, and shared public transportation solutions. So affordable, clean, and active. So all of those things at the same time will reduce pollution and improve air quality. And then also improve our community safety. Make it more safe to bike and walk around town, and reduce our reliance on private vehicles, which are actually expensive. One of our major focuses is to reduce something called vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, and pollution. And so this, especially within our communities, as you can see on this slide, 68% of Petaluma trips are 5 miles or less. So how can we reduce a large percentage of those trips from being in a private fossil fuel supplied vehicle? So envision within a 10-minute walk of every residence, everywhere in Petaluma, a safe, clean, and dedicated bike and footpath, car share facilities open to all residents, and more frequent and reliable public transit service. Next slide, please. The next really important area we need to work on is building connective and affordable housing. We need to prioritize rapid development of more energy efficient, healthy, and permanently affordable housing. We need to retain existing residents by enacting tenant protections to prevent displacement. And new affordable housing must be built close to existing and improved transit systems. Similarly to the other slides, these outcomes will bring cleaner air and more connected neighborhoods, plus new green jobs. Next slide, please. Another approach is cooling our streets and homes by developing a more robust urban forests. We'd like to think about more street trees and ways of increasing our urban forests throughout the city, prioritizing areas that in neighborhoods that really need it the most, and create more shade for our homes and streets and reduce the dangers of overheating, improve outdoor air quality. And as mentioned before, trees can also absorb rainfall, and we can use tree-based systems to improve habitat connectivity. And as Commissioner Webster spoke about, trees in urban forests also sequester carbon. Next slide, please. Another big choice ahead of us is to reduce the embodied energy in our buildings. So a lot of building materials have energy embodied in them and making them and in transporting them. So how can we reduce carbon in our building materials? So one way we can do this is by requiring architects and builders to choose materials that have lower greenhouse gas impacts or even capture carbon. For example, conventional cement is responsible for 6% of greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. So we can use other materials as opposed to concrete. We can use other materials that are more environmentally friendly. And we can also require that concrete itself is produced in a different way to lower its carbon content and can actually improve its structural performance at the same time. So those are some of the things that we can do. And I'm now going to pass this on to Commissioner Orritt for additional solutions.
Actually, I think I'm doing these slides.
Commissioner Webster.
All right, thank you. All right, so it's essential that we work to ensure that all Petalumans gain access to livable, healthy housing. We would like to build more affordable housing, and we want to ensure that new and existing housing is resilient to climate change. So this graph that you're looking at shows that in 2015, 35% of households surveyed across the United States reported energy insecurity. This means that these households reduced or forewent basic necessities to pay energy bills, received disconnect notices, or kept their homes at an unhealthy or unsafe temperature. Petaluma needs to identify funding to enable energy retrofitting for rental housing and low-income homeowners to reduce utility costs, improve indoor air quality, and also health. Next slide. So we want to prepare and adapt Petaluma's built environment and infrastructure for coming changes. We need to make investments in efficient and local clean energy like wind and solar, energy conservation, stormwater capture and reuse, and 21st century communications to keep us better informed and connected. These will not only serve to protect us in emergencies, but also increase our self-reliance as a community and provide long-term cost savings. Next slide. We want to transition our community to a community that is free of fossil fuels in new and existing neighborhoods. As part of this transition, our homes will have zero on-site greenhouse gas emissions, zero explosion risk, and clean indoor air quality. Building natural gas is implicated in asthma, formaldehyde poisoning, and a host of other health problems in adults and children. All electric homes are safer, healthier, and also cost less to build. Okay, next slide.
And I'll take it from here. So restoring the Petaluma River is another major opportunity to provide multiple climate benefits to both the river and our community. And improving the ecological functioning of our lands, creeks, and the Petaluma River will help to create local jobs and protect our city from massive flooding impacts. Next slide, please, Patrick. As a community, we need to transition to land management practices that draw down carbon by pulling it out of the air and into the soil and plants in our landscapes. In Petaluma, we have nearly 50 parks and open spaces, which equals hundreds of acres with vast carbon sequestration potential. Our parks and open spaces can provide everything from bird, pollinator, and wildlife habitat to community gardens and food forests. These areas offer space for people to enjoy and feel a sense of well-being. We also need to preserve more green and open spaces and parks in all possible areas of Petaluma for access and enjoyment by all community members in their own neighborhoods. As we preserve green and open spaces and create parks, we can plan for natural connecting areas for wildlife movement and more habitat to support birds, pollinators, and wildlife. A high-use, low-impact design for these areas will support access and use by people and also preserve natural areas for birds, pollinators, and wildlife. Next slide, please, Patrick. We need to create healthy soils, and food access is a way to support food sovereignty and access. So as a community, this can happen through developing land stewardship programs to regenerate rich, healthy carbon-storing soils, expand our urban forest, grow more food, ramp up food recovery, support local meal service programs. And as part of improving soil health and carbon uptake and addressing food insecurity and overall food sovereignty in our community, I actually wanted to read this really great quote that we had pulled up from the first global forum on food sovereignty that took place in Mali in 2007. So food sovereignty is the right of peoples to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agriculture systems. It puts the aspirations and needs of those who produce, distribute, and consume food at the heart of food systems and policies, rather than the demands of markets and corporations. So by improving local food sovereignty, we reduce reliance on corporate food structures and increase local knowledge of where and how our food is produced. Additionally, this provides the opportunity to support local agriculture as well as reduce food miles traveled. Next slide, please, Patrick. We need to increase reuse and reduce waste by creating environmentally and disability-friendly alternatives to single-use plastics, such as plastic straws, develop more options for reuse, repair, and salvage, and make recycling and composting more intuitive and accessible for our whole community. And I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Gare now.
Hi, everyone. So here on this slide, we're talking about nurturing our local businesses. Much of our carbon footprint comes from money we spend outside of our local area. These are a part of our consumption-based emissions. When we spend our money locally, we can reduce pollution from transporting goods over long distances and support our farmers, our food artisans, service providers, and other businesses. Not only that, but our local businesses here in Petaluma support each other and we create local jobs. Next slide, please. So we need to provide a path towards sustainable jobs and new infrastructure. Part of creating a just transition is through creating green, well-paying local jobs. In addressing climate impacts, we have an increase of jobs created and have the opportunity to invest in new systems that are both economically and environmentally viable, unlike older systems that are dependent on fossil fuels. Some opportunities that can stem from this include job training programs with priority to economically marginalized workers, those who have been unemployed due to COVID-19, as well as others who have been excluded from the stimulus package. This is especially important to consider as we think about how we recover economically from the pandemic. Next slide, please. So we're coming to the end of our presentation. And as we end this presentation, we would like you to leave holding these questions here on this slide. How is climate change affecting your life right now? And what changes do you want to see? And in answering these questions, we would really love to hear your thoughts and priorities through our survey for the Climate Emergency Framework. The link is here on the slide, and Commissioner Webster will provide us later with more information about the survey and how to access it. And I think this is where we are initiating our poll, right?
We'll try that again. So I'm
Let's do it.
relaunching the poll. So feel free to answer. It'll ask you to answer all over again, but focusing on question 2 this time. And maybe since we're almost at the end of the presentation, maybe we can do question number 3 as well. They're pretty closely aligned here.
Yeah, let's do all of the questions, and then we can broadcast it.
Yeah, we'll share the results.
Thank you.
All right, those results are coming in. Thank you so much for everybody that's participating in this. I think we'll give about 30 more seconds.
There's someone saying that they're unable to submit.
They may need to answer all the questions. That may be the problem. The screen does not scroll down. All right, I think that's probably good. I'm gonna end the poll. Sorry if those, we're at 75%, so that's a pretty good voting turnout here. So I'm gonna end the poll now and share the results. Not sure if that's showing up on your screens. All right. So for question one, I think now is a good time to go over it. It looks like the majority, or the highest percentage of folks that responded felt that transportation was the largest source of their greenhouse gas emissions. And with question two, which of these impacts are most concerning to you? Looks like about a third of us voted for the drought, with about equal numbers of fire and smoke and flooding, and then extreme heat. Oh, sorry, I totally missed the biggest portion of it, which is 36%, which is the disproportional impact on marginalized communities, communities of color, low-income communities, senior residents, people with disabilities, youth, people without shelter, LGBTQIA+ communities, etc. So strong interest in this poll, recognizing those disproportionate impacts on marginal communities, and then followed by drought. And then finally, which climate solution is most important to you? Looks like the largest percentage is the transition to clean energy, then affordable housing, building connected affordable housing, and then fostering active and clean transportation, tied with restoring the Petaluma River and reducing erosion and pollution. So lots of responses all over the board, but the transition to clean energy was the highest percentage, with about a quarter of the respondents in this one. So thank you all for taking your time to respond to those polls. Appreciate it. Sorry it didn't go as smoothly as we hoped it would, but appreciate the feedback.
All right, awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Patrick, could you please move to our next slide? So on the slide is an opportunity to keep staying connected with us in the city. You can subscribe to the city's daily newsletter for updates from our commission, including information on upcoming meetings and opportunities to get further involved. And Patrick, I think you were going to show us on the website where people can sign up for the newsletter.
Yeah, so I'll share this screen here. I think I need to reshare it. So this, if you click that link that was on the website, it would take you here to subscribe. You put in your first name, last name, email, and then to get information directly from the Climate Action Commission, you'd go to the public meetings, and that'll bring this other drop-down information, and then you can click the Climate Action Commission and submit. Very easy. We try to make things easy. Back to the presentation.
Yes, thank you. And could you please move to our last slide? So yeah, we are here at the end of our presentation, and we just want to end with gratitude for everyone who has shown up and who will watch this presentation later. Yeah, for taking the time to watch and engage with us today on your Saturday afternoon. Also wanting to give gratitude to our amazing group of volunteers who have worked with us in creating the presentation and the survey. And a huge shout out and gratitude to Martin, our interpreter, for his real-time interpretation throughout this meeting. Apologies for speaking super fast earlier. And also huge shout out to city staff and tech for helping with us this presentation on this Saturday. Just wanting to remind everyone that this is an ongoing dialogue, and we hope to continue engaging with you all throughout this process. And we want to also thank you for giving your real-time reflections with us through the polling questions, and we really look forward to receiving more in-depth feedback on the framework and through your participation in our survey. Some of the other ways you can support this vision being crafted and implemented include, as we saw earlier, as shown by Patrick, signing up to receive notifications for our commission meetings, participating through joining one of our volunteer ad hoc groups, spreading the word to your friends, neighbors, and networks about the framework and the survey, sharing our presentation with a group or organization you're a part of, and letting us know what engagement strategies you're interested in participating in the future. Your feedback is going to contribute to the climate emergency engagement strategy, which will outline plans and specific commitments for bringing organizations and individuals into the city's climate work by June 2021, with a particular focus on critical and historically underrepresented individuals and groups. We are extremely committed as a commission to listening to you as a part of understanding our community's priorities so we can respond and implement actions to build a safe, healthy, and sustainable environment we all want. Thank you everyone again, and that concludes our presentation.
Well done. Thank you so much. And I think I just would like to tag on Commissioner Gurr's comments on that. Really want to ask you all to do the heavy lift of sharing this with your networks, sharing this to people that maybe typically don't respond to official city surveys, just letting them know that the importance of this, how we really are interested in the feedback and really want to make sure that the community owns whatever work product comes out of this framework. It's in English and Spanish. It's on our website. So please, whatever effort you can do to spread the word and let people know about this is very, very much appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody. That was really an amazing presentation. Thank you to the committee. Are we going to take public comment now or go into the next phase of this workshop?
We have one hand raised. I don't know, engagement, framework engagement ad hoc. Did you want to talk more about the survey first, or did you want to give people a chance to reflect on the presentation?
Let's give people a chance to reflect on the presentation, and then we can do the survey. And then maybe at the end of after the survey, we can do a public comment, but then after public comment, open for Q&A for presentation and survey all together.
Okay. Okay, then let's open the public comment.
All right, so those that want to share their thoughts on the presentation, please raise your hand, the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll give you time to speak. So I'm gonna share my screen for the timer. And we have two hands raised currently. It's Ellen Solomon, followed by Taryn Obaid. So Ellen, you may unmute yourself and begin sharing your thoughts with us.
Sorry, that was only because I could not submit the survey. So
okay.
That was where I clicked that. So I mean, my mind is not gathered enough to put out something at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. I apologize that we weren't able to make that work for you. We'll try and go back to the drawing board and make sure our polls work better in the future. I apologize for that. Next speaker is Taryn Obaid, followed by Jerry Wilkinson. So Taryn, you may unmute.
Hi, everyone. I have a question and then a request. And first the question, and I would really love an answer to this because I am not a climate change specialist by any means. This is totally new to me as a concerned citizen. Here's my question. Watching the Riverbend Planning Commission meeting, it was approved despite there are wetlands on that riverbank where the project's going to go. And the wetlands are going to be paved over, and at the same time, the developer is purchasing something like a carbon credit, or maybe it's a wetland credit, I don't know. But given that the Petaluma River is so very polluted, I'm wondering why we would allow that for a riverfront development. So I would love to understand where the Climate Emergency Commission stands on the use of credits, because it seems to me that's just a loophole that would allow any project to claim net zero, you know, or greenwash it, whatever. Thank you for that, please, an answer to that. And then also my comment or suggestion or request is I am signed up to receive alerts for all city council or city meetings. And I do get alerts for things like planning commission meetings and city council meetings, but I do not get them for this commission's meetings. And in fact, I am only aware of today's meeting because several friends emailed me about it. I do understand from a previous climate commission meeting I attended that the city manager said that there's restricted city services to support you in terms of social media or community outreach. So here's my request. Could you please post your meetings such as this one on Nextdoor and on Facebook? If the city can't do that for you, can you please do it directly? Because a lot of people aren't getting the word about these types of meetings, and a lot of people are very interested in attending them. And I bet we would have many more than 44 today if people only knew. Thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you. All right. So really quickly on that, on the Riverbend project, I'm not on the planning commission. I'm not the staff that supports that. The planning department does that. But one thing that I have learned from, I've moderated a couple of those meetings even on Zoom, they're looking at implementing the general plan. And we recognize that the general plan was adopted in 2008 and conditions have changed pretty significantly since then. And the city is in the process of beginning outreach on that update to the general plan. So, you know, I think a criticism I've heard is that that what's being implemented isn't reflecting the climate emergency. So there's a conflict on what folks feel like they need to be done and what's allowable under the general plan. So that's, I think now is a great time to get that feedback into the general plan outreach process, which is begun. There's been presentations on a number of city commissions and committees, and that's going to be going forward. That's on the August 13th Climate Action Commission meeting. Planning staff will be at the commission to talk about the outreach to be done on the general plan for that. It was discussed at the council meeting, I believe, 2 meetings ago, not this last one, but the one before. So you can look at the city's website and review the meeting from that. But yeah, so I mean, I think that's great input, you know, that you could provide, feeling like the general plan doesn't reflect your priorities. That's a feedback that you can provide and ask that it be incorporated into the update. So with that, and then also on not receiving alerts and information about the Climate Action Commission meetings and posts. This meeting was advertised on the city's Facebook site, on Nextdoor, on Instagram. It was included in the city newsletter that's sent out to all over the city on Monday and Wednesday. And the event was on the city's front page on the website. So there's been a lot of effort to get the word out there. Certainly happy to accept suggestions on how we could reach other groups beyond what we've been doing. So it has been supported. It will be continue to be supported, and but we're happy to take suggestions. P Carter, PCARTER at cityofpetaluma.org is my email address. So feel free to send me suggestions if you'd like. All right, on that, let's move on to Jerry. Wilkin. Yes.
I'm sorry, this is Commissioner Bartholomew. I just wanted to directly address Taryn's question about where does the commission stand on the use of carbon credits or other credits. And I just wanted to make sure her question was answered indirectly. And so right now, the framework is the only document that the Climate Commission has produced. It's a draft framework out for community input and then council approval. And there is no mention of carbon credits or any kind of carbon accounting currently in that framework. It doesn't mean that it won't be added in the future, there won't be discussions of it, but currently the framework's silent on the issue of carbon credits or offsets.
I actually have one thing to add to that as well. I believe if the development is paving over wetlands, then the developers are being required to buy wetland mitigation credits, not carbon mitigation credits. And we have not taken an official position on that.
Thank you, everybody. Shall we continue with the public comments?
Yeah. So next speaker is Jerry Wilkinson, followed by Patricia Tuttle Brown. So Jerry, you may unmute and begin speaking.
Hello and good afternoon. I just want to thank all of you for a great presentation. There's a huge amount of time that you must have put in for all that, and a lot of very good information. I'm pretty much a novice at this, so everything you presented was more or less new to me. So I appreciate all that. One thing that someone had mentioned, I think one of the previous public comments, was a scorecard. And that seems like a real good idea to me. It might be a way, have the potential to make the city council perhaps a little more responsive to your recommendations. And I think that would be a very good thing. So that is my comment. And again, thank you all very much.
Thank you. Next commenter is Patricia Tuttle Brown, followed by Deborah Fox. So Patricia, you may unmute.
I actually sent a written message saying, excellent presentation, great work, because I thought it was over, and I thought, that's odd. It didn't talk about any of the things that I got a hard copy of. It was a great presentation, and I would like to say in specific that it was articulate, that it was thoughtful, it was open, it was gentle, it was humble, and it was thorough. And I want to give kudos to those people, all of you up there. I want to give kudos to Patrick for being such a gentle moderator. We all, this is such an interesting time with all this technology. And for Delinda for having many dreams, she's some of which are happening. And I think that the idea of being humble is very important at a time like this, because no one knows everything, and your humility will make it a lot easier for the community to get behind what we're all hoping can happen. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker is Deborah Fox, followed by Brent Newell. So Deb, please unmute.
Hello, this is Chris Fox, Deb's partner. We're on her account here. Thank you, everybody. I've got two separate comments. Number one, in this time of the coronavirus global pandemic, we've all had to learn, for better or for worse, how to slow down. We're at home more. Some of us are, having to reduce the number of miles driven or even cars driven. My comment in this area as it relates to climate is I would really love to see Petaluma sort of capitalize or leverage this time and this practice to implement some things that are already in your plan in terms of local driving or transitioning to local transportation, and specifically an area that I'd like to see Petaluma sort of join in the wave of other cities is outdoor dining and restaurants. It really is going to help preserve the health and safety of our local restaurant workers, keep the economy going locally, and also to sort of illustrate the point that we can make a transition to a more walkable, livable, climate-friendly city. So that's something that's been on my mind. I think we have an opportunity to really, you know, to use a trite phrase, lean into that. And I guess it's not trite, but it's common these days. The second point I wanted to make real quick, I've got another minute, is in the area of clean energy. I work in the clean energy solar and storage world. And I would really love to see Petaluma focus on developing resiliency at local schools and facilities that can help us get through some of the climate emergencies that we live with here, i.e. fires, and to help prop up, again, marginalized communities that might need more support and help in times when we're having to live through power shutoffs. And I would love to hear more about any kind of, you know, ad hoc group or work or fundraising happening in the area of climate resiliency, specifically through renewable energy, microgrid development, and strategically selecting facilities that are going to help the most impacted populations. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think I'll just take this moment to chime in right here and address a couple issues from the speaker. Yes, outdoor dining is something that's being prioritized. We have a program that goes along with our chicken and butter and eggs past. It's lovingly called Free Range, where we're encouraging the businesses to conduct business outdoors so they can continue to be the lifeblood of our community and keep their businesses running in these difficult times. So encourage you to look at our website, look at the resources available in that program, and always encourage shopping locally. So yeah, check out Free Range. And then on the subject of the transition to clean energy and resiliency, a quick update, and this is something that I wanted to address regardless on the issue. The city and staff that I'm representing right now is not waiting. We're not sitting around looking to the leadership of the Climate Action Commission before we take action, though we definitely appreciate the leadership that they're giving and are definitely interested in the results. But we have taken action already. We've converted thousands of our streetlights to LEDs, reducing energy use there. The council recently has approved, and I shouldn't say that staff is taking leadership, the council is ultimately taking leadership on these issues. They've approved the installation of solar on 4 city facilities: the airport, the community center, the police department, and the swim center. So that project's getting kicked off, and hopefully by the end of the year we'll have some visible proof that project's moving forward, hopefully to have those installations online. There's, you know, miles and miles of a purple pipe of recycled water that's going through our city to irrigate our parks, you know, reducing the potable, the clean drinking water that would be needed otherwise to water those parks. We have a fleet vehicle currently that's an electric vehicle with more on the way. And the council's made it abundantly clear that they want to see this fleet that we're driving around as city staff to be electrified as quickly as possible, including the infrastructure needed to run those vehicles. So we've made applications to rebate programs to help assist us in getting those charging stations installed, and grants as well. We've been successful in a few grants. So there's a lot of projects moving forward. We aren't just waiting to figure it out. We're doing these things in parallel. And I think that this framework that's being developed is going to help focus on future actions and prioritize. And that's, again, why we're looking to the community for feedback. What are your priorities? How should the city be focusing its very limited resources on addressing this climate emergency? And how do we get there as quickly as possible? And including to the last point from the last commenter, the need for resiliency. We know that the emergency situations are going to become more frequent in the future, and we want to make sure that we continue to be that safe haven for our community and even the larger Sonoma County. We've hosted hundreds of our fellow Sonoma County residents who've been displaced by disasters in the past and opened our doors to them. And we want to make sure that we can keep our lights on and keep those resources available in everyone's time of need. So yes, we are looking to options for how we keep our lights on even when the larger grid is out. And we'll continue to look into that. We've done facility assessments that's identified $30 million of upgrades needed. So we know that our infrastructure is aging, and that's just in the city facilities. And we really need to focus on how we're able to fund those upgrades, and not just bringing them up to what's needed currently, but looking to the future on how we provide these resources going forward. So all these things are going on currently, and with the help of this framework, and what comes after that, whether it's a climate action plan, is definitely going to be helping us. So again, another plug, look to that survey, help us choose those priorities, and again, really appreciate everyone's thoughts on this.
Are there any public comments at this time, or?
Yeah, we still have quite a few. Sorry to monologue there, but I just want to make sure that folks understand that action is happening, and it is a priority. So next speaker is Brent Newell, followed by Susan Kirks. Oh, sorry, Brent Newell. Please unmute yourself and begin speaking.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Climate Action Commission. My name is Brent Newell. First of all, I'd like to thank the commissioners for all their hard work and dedication to this. There's been a lot of time and effort that's gone into this framework. I certainly wasn't planning on saying anything today, just observing the workshop, but I wanted to respond to something I heard. By way of background, I won't establish my credentials. I'm an environmental attorney, and I advise the Climate Equity Subcommittee, if that's what it was called. I don't remember exactly, on its framework, on its chapter. And I heard Commissioner Bartholomew mention that the framework is silent on pollution trading. If the framework and the city's climate action initiative and plans and ultimate objectives and actions are going to have a climate equity lens, a climate justice lens, then this framework must reject pollution trading, offsets, low carbon fuel standard credits, well, whatever you call them. Even carbon taxes can be implemented in a manner that allows for the concentration of pollution. Pollution trading is something that the environmental justice movement in California and nationally has strenuously opposed. You can look to sources like the California Environmental Justice Alliance, the Climate Justice Alliance, and other current environmental justice organizations for their positions on pollution trading. The net harm with pollution trading is that it ends up concentrating pollution in certain areas. In California, that is predominantly areas of the state where people of color are majority residents, and it's inherently unjust, racist, and inappropriate for the city of Petaluma to have that kind of mitigation within its plan. And I sincerely hope that as we move forward with the draft and the public comment process, that the commission unanimously takes that stance. I want to thank you again for your time and effort. Really appreciate all your hard work. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments.
I'd like
Next.
to respond to that. Brent, thank you so much for the education on that. And I think that from a personal standpoint, agree with what you've just said. So thank you for making that comment.
And before we continue with public comment, I also just wanted to make sure to remind people that we will have this public comment period, and then we still have the presentation to share. And there will be another opportunity as well for public comment and open question and answer period. So just to say that there will be more time as well.
Yeah, we're upon the 30-minute mark of our time left, so I recognize. We have 3 more hands up. I think we can get through those. Susan Kirks, followed by Trayton Heckman. So Susan, you may unmute and begin speaking.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Frederick, for that reminder. I almost put my hand down, but I'll just briefly say, I wanted to thank you all for the presentation so far, and for framing the presentation by honoring the Indigenous history in your comments in the beginning of the presentation, and to ask that you remind us all in your presentations and your communication to the public with this context and in this context as you move forward. I think it's really important to help us connect to the broader area where we live, and to honor Indigenous history, and also move forward in that context. And I also wanted to thank Commissioners Baker, Frederick, and Orritt for the support of my participation representing 2 conservation groups to include information about habitat protection and wildlife corridors and connectivity, and we'll be giving you more information about that. And I wanted to give a quick example of why it's important, what you're proposing related to open spaces and green spaces. In one of your slides, there's a photograph of Walnut Park in downtown Petaluma. And we really need your connection to other commissions and committees in the city. Several years ago, there was a volunteer effort to do some refurbishing and renovation of Walnut Park, and I just remember it like it was yesterday. There was a commissioner, Parks and Rec Commissioner Roger Leventhal, with environmental experience, who really wanted to see replacement of the pathways there with pervious surfaces, which was possible and advisable with the trees and the open area there. And the city just wouldn't accept it. The city said the people who were doing this, you know, they could only afford to do the impervious concrete paths. It was being paid for by the volunteer group. And so that's what happened. That's why those paths are all impervious concrete now. So we also need commissioners on other commissioners, committee members who have similar approaches to what you were saying, your backgrounds in education. We really need people on the Parks and Rec Commission that have some environmental experience. And lastly, I'd just like to thank you for including intersectional environmentalism. I put this in the Q&A section, but the Leah Thomas, whose definition was used there, is really a forward-thinking and informed, compassionate. Her Instagram account is Green Girl Leah, G.
All right, I'm sorry, Susan, the time has expired. So next speaker is Beverly Alexander, and you've been unmuted. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Am I not? Yeah.
Yep.
I'm unmuted. Okay, first of all, I want to thank Daily Acts, because I think that was my first connection in Petaluma with becoming aware of a lot of these issues. And so, I'm really glad that the city is working with Daily Acts. And for a while I couldn't volunteer with them because my knee had gotten so bad that every step was agony, but now I have a new knee. And so I really appreciate that. And through Daily Acts, I learned about permaculture too. And one thing that came to mind was a comment about updating the general plan. And, you know, I think that a lot of the discussion about that is looking towards a new general plan, which won't be out for a few years. And to me, it's a little bit like if you had a lease, say a 3-year lease on an apartment, but something happened and you had to move out, you know, this month. You would not want your packages to be delivered to that apartment anymore. You would want them to go to the new apartment. And in the same way, we don't want to have the general plan guide development when there is new information out. And we need to be able to use the new information now and not wait for, you know, it to go through this whole long process, especially when it comes to climate change. The other thing I noticed was in the survey, a lot of people talked about drought as being a major consideration, but we forget very quickly how many really terrible floods we've had in Petaluma. And that, you know, a few years ago, that would have been the first consideration. And right now, our development is, approvals are being made without consideration of flooding and based on ancient data, which is put forth as being current, but it's not. So I urge you in whatever way you can to help the city be up to date and in the present and not in some past dream where we're thinking things are the way they used to be. And it would be like having our packages delivered to the wrong address. You know, I mean, we're just not going to survive that way. So anyway, I see my time is running out. I want to thank you for listening. Okay.
Thank you. All right, that was the last hand raised. So Madam Chair, I think we could
Great.
move on.
Let's close the public comment period. Thank you very much for all those thoughts. And we're going to move to a discussion of the survey by the Engagement Ad Hoc Committee.
Hi, I think you know, we've discussed the survey at various points during the presentation. I'm hoping at this point there was also a chat in the Q&A box about the survey, and I included the link in that box. But I would like to just ask, I'm so grateful that we have, you know, 44 attendees with us today. Thank you all so much for coming. It's really, really wonderful to have you here, even though we can't see your faces. But I have one more ask for you, and that is to please take our survey. And I typed the answer in the comment box, the address, but let me just read out the URL. I feel like that's what I've been doing today, is reading URLs, but please write this down and take our survey. So it's www.surveymonkey.com/r/VMNYBPD. So please go and take that survey. We would like to get your responses to it by August 3rd, so we can bring the results to our next commission meeting, which is, I believe, that week as well. It's that Thursday. And just a little update, today we have had, let's see, 126 responses to our survey, which is great, but we want many, many more. So please share that survey far and wide, and then we will report back on the results in our next commission meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Webster. I just also want to add that the survey is available in Spanish as well.
Thanks. Any more discussion on the survey? So then do we now go to the Q&A portion of the meeting?
Yeah, if there are any additional questions or thoughts regarding any of this, and especially considering how ideas or thoughts regarding how we're moving forward. We would really love to hear from people.
So I'm looking at the questions, the open questions in our Q&A chat box. There's a question about addressing whether plan is to allow Petaluma to claim carbon credits to achieve net zero. I think we've talked about that. We've heard about the concerns about that, and I think that the commission will take that into account when with all the other feedback that we're receiving about the framework plan, and I believe they'll want to take a position on that. Note that the city has just approved more gas vehicle purchases. That's correct for the fire prevention vehicles. There was approval, I believe, of 3 vehicles, 3 gas vehicles. And I think one of the justifications with that one was that there needed to be a physical separation because they're collecting, combustible material. There needed to be a physical separation between the occupant, the driver, and where they're putting that material. So there's some specialty vehicles that there's just not a commercially available alternative right now. I know that in the very near future, and I'm watching it very carefully, I know that Ford and Chevy are both looking to release electric vehicle trucks in the future, and a lot of other breaking news. New vehicle manufacturers like Tesla has the Cybertruck, and Rivian is coming up with trucks in the very near future. So we're really on that cusp, and I think that staff has understood the direction from the council that we really need to move as quickly as possible to electrify the fleet going forward. So looking at that, more comments about carbon and pollution trading, and a question about it, can we extend meetings like we do with city council and other commission meetings? I think, is that a question about a joint meeting? That's maybe something we can look at in the future. And maybe I see that Taryn Obeid has her hand up again, so maybe she wants to clarify that comment. So we'll go straight to that again. And this is kind of our wrap-up Q&A, so feel free to raise your hands if you have more comments or questions you want to bring to the commission. So Taryn, you may unmute and go ahead and speak.
Thank you. Hello, it's me again. Okay, so just a couple of notes. I love transparency, and I love the power of the people, and I love the work that the Climate Emergency Commission is doing. Okay, Climate Action Commission. All right, so I am viewing this meeting with some other people, and they are on their devices. But I just want to suggest for the future that some of the comments that are being made not be withheld because they're not showing up on everybody's Q&A stream. And I think it'd be, for the sake of transparency, healthiest if those comments are allowed to go through, unless, of course, they have some issues with profanity or breaking the rules, but I don't understand why they are being suppressed. Number 2, the city does post meetings on Nextdoor, and as I'm looking at Nextdoor right now, I'm seeing that there are lots of COVID-19 meetings and town halls that have been posted on Nextdoor, but this one, in fact, was not directly posted on Nextdoor. It was posted by 2 citizens that formulated a post themselves, took the initiative to do that, and spent their time doing it. If it is posted by the city on Nextdoor, it must be buried in some other post. And so please, again, to the commission, if you could please post directly a meeting so that citizens are aware of meetings like today. I would appreciate that. And then I would just also say that I did make a comment about if we could please extend this meeting if we are up against time. This is very important. We are, on a large sense, up against time. So I would like to see us perhaps extend this town hall meeting like we do with all of our other commission meetings and our city council meetings. Thank you very much for your consideration. That's it.
Thank you. Are there other questions out there in the community? I mean, this is our opportunity to directly ask a.
I just wanted to briefly respond,
Sure,
Chair Baker, to Taryn, and just to share that I really appreciate your the way that you keep coming forward to share about the need for the city to effectively communicate about the different meetings and the different efforts and opportunities for engagement with this commission. And wanting to state that we are definitely in conversation and in direct relationship with the city staff that does communication, and we're really actively working on that relationship, but that the city has been posting about the meeting, so maybe it did get buried. And then also just wanting to share that we have all of these different ad hoc groups that are made up of different volunteers who are here this afternoon with us. And I believe the 2 people who posted on Nextdoor were a part of our volunteer ad hoc group. So in essence, that happened directly through the city, as it was something that our group put together. So it didn't come through the city channels, but it did come through the efforts of this commission directly.
it does look like there's some other questions in the Q&A box.
Yeah, let's take the 2 that have their hands raised real quick, and then we'll come back to those. So Susan Kirks has her hand up, followed by Beverly Shore. So Susan, you may unmute and begin speaking.
Thank you. Hi, I'm glad to know that Beverly's coming after me. So since Beverly is speaking, I do want to acknowledge Beverly on the Parks and Rec Commission. In fact, since Roger Leventhal left, she is the only commissioner who has spoken up about the Climate Action Commission, attended Climate Action Commission meetings, and in her role as a citizen, and this isn't what I was going to say, by the way, but since I know she's going to speak, and I really want to acknowledge Beverly, because believe me, she tries in the commission meetings to put forward really meaningful communication that would connect the Parks and Rec Commission function to your work. And so I want to say thank you to her, because she's speaking after me. But I also wanted to say, in a broader context of this commission with the City of Petaluma government, you're the first individuals on commissions, really, other than Roger at the Parks and Rec Commission, that I have had an experience with in the past, I guess, 12 years. My bet is positive, and that is responsive. My organization, 2 organizations I represent, Paula Lane Action Network and Madrone Audubon Society, have very deep experience in conservation and environmental issues here in Petaluma for at least 20 years. And so while I appreciate that Daily Acts is directly involved and has a role in the community, our organizations have been around actually longer than Daily Acts. And the high use, low impact design that I appreciate you featuring, which is our Paula Lane Action Network open space and green space project design for balanced public access with programs for volunteers and education on open space and green space properties that also must have protected habitat and connectivity, is something that will serve the community here in Petaluma really well if we can help educate and help connect with people in Petaluma who really do love wildlife, birds, and habitat. That's going to be a real connector in moving this climate action plan forward in a way that people will understand it, in addition to the really important work that you're doing regarding energy and housing and transportation. So I encourage you to simply continue what you're doing, each of you, Your authenticity that I have experienced in the commission meetings is really unprecedented here in this community. And as long as you stay connected to your own experience and your own processes, I feel encouraged that all of the challenges we're experiencing will be able to be resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next speaker is Beverly Shore. So you may unmute and begin speaking.
Okay, I want to thank you all sincerely for the hard work that you do. I am a commissioner on Parks and Rec. I thank Susan Kirks for her shout out. I think last time she sent me a message, I just emailed one word back, and that's Sisyphus. And I often feel like that on Parks and Rec, and I sincerely hope that you are able to do this presentation in front of every committee and commission so that they know that they can and should be involved in your important work. We're a city, we represent the city, and you know, we need to know that each of us sitting in one of these appointed positions is responsible not only to the community, but to the improvement of the community through the tools that we have. I fortunately sit on Parks and Rec. I see this as an amazing opportunity, not only for sequestration, but for all the other, you know, the pathways to get people out of their cars, all of those health concerns. But I also just recently accepted, I actually asked for a seat on the tree committee, and they are totally oblivious, not by choice, but they have not been introduced to the ways that they can interface and support these climate missions. So I ask you, please take the time at the regular stated meetings to do this presentation and make sure that every one of us becomes aware of the important work that you do. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you. Can I respond briefly to that? I just want to say that's a great comment, and that's something that we've been working on and fully intend to do, to make presentations and set up collaborative dialogues with all the other city commissions and committees. And we also feel really strongly that we need to somehow kind of get out of all these different institutional roles that we're in, you know, where this commission's over here and that one's over there and staff's over here. So we're looking at trying to have point persons in different city departments and create more alignment and integration between the work that everyone's doing. Because when we take this seriously, when we say we're in a climate emergency and we are acting with full seriousness, that means that we're all working together to move this forward as fast as we can. And essentially what we need is really immense, robust, and detailed conversations and sharing of knowledge and willingness to look at new solutions. So that's definitely the work this committee is trying to understand, is how to have a more collaborative process and create more integrated solutions so that we're not working against each other, that things that we decide to do, they start to align and they make multiple benefits in lots of different areas. And that's kind of why we're being so deliberative in terms of working through a framework and really wanting to hear lots of community feedback, is because that allows us to find out where those alignments are and then try and make them real. Thank you.
Great. There are no other hands raised at this time. Oh,
We
well, had one for a second. But there are a couple other comments in there. Trayson Heckman provided a link to the Oakland Equitable Climate Action Plan going to their city council next week. So there's a link in the Q&A box for that. So thank you, Trayson, for that that link. And
also, I think adding on to that he was wanting to really he was wanting to highlight that we have here in Petaluma been fortunate to have great volunteer energy by the commission and community, and that I believe he's saying the Oakland 2030 Climate Action Plan is calling for establishing funding for a climate action network of local groups to support inclusive community engagement. I think that was like a core part of the comment as well. I just wanted to highlight that because it's important.
Yeah.
Okay, and another comment, individual households make good and bad decisions daily as they use products which they know are less than great, but cannot be one home research department. I believe the commission should create a current time arm to help consolidate answers, sticky notes, file folders, labels, coffee cups to go, which are not paper like everyone thinks when choosing them. So it sounds kind of like this seems like it's kind of in line with not only the scorecard that another commenter talked about for the council for making decisions, but also kind of a general individual household decisions. How can they do that? I know there's a lot of resources out there that already have this information, but maybe it's something that we can post on the commission website to kind of bring attention to that, and also just on bring it forefront on the city's website. We always like to get good information out there to inform our community members. So
Patrick, if I can say also that we have a zero waste committee, and we're hosting a film called The Story of Plastic, and we're going to do a panel discussion afterwards with a lot of our solid waste haulers and recycled and compost facilities. So there'll be an opportunity to, if you want to know more about how you use products and what can be thrown away and what can't, that's going to be a great opportunity. And the city is co-hosting with us, so that will be on their website coming up the end of August. So watch for that. Thank you.
Great.
There's another hand raised with a question or comment.
All right, looks like Ellen Solomon. So Ellen, you may unmute and begin your comment. And I think this is going to be the last one because we're really approaching the 2 o'clock hour. So thank you all for being here.
All
Ellen,
right.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was on the tree committee, and I've been very concerned since I lived here about 11 years about the loss of tree canopy in Petaluma and how big trees come down, but there's not enough planting of trees that will make a large enough size. And I found the tree committee, while I think initially people were well-meaning, it seems so ineffective. It may take a very precise action plan. If you go to meet with the committee, there needs to be a way to make sure that something actually happens. So I don't know what to suggest. I know you're just an advisory committee, so are they, but you can end up being giving advice and nothing happening for a long time. So one city to look at is Sacramento, where they have very active tree replacement, and they're trying to preserve the canopy. We just had a whole bunch of big trees come down where I live, which is at Old Elm Village. It's a Burbank housing, and they do not seem, I don't know what they're aware of. No comment. Anyway, so I just want to say, make a strategy that will actually have some effect. Make sure that it is enforceable. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I could respond to that briefly. That's a really good point. I think there's some environments in our city where trees don't naturally thrive, some of our streetscapes and other environments. So that is something like beyond recommending a policy that there needs to be greater enforcement. We actually need to think about how do we create conditions for trees to thrive. So it goes beyond a little bit that into looking at design alternatives and making certain maybe requirements for parking lots, that they have a percentage of shade within a certain number of years after construction. There's lots of things to actually make that happen. And you're right, Sacramento is a great example, and that was largely initiated by their utility district, if I understand it, to reduce energy costs. And it's been going on since probably the late 80s, and it's been very successful. So thank you for that comment.
Great. Well, it looks like we're approaching the 2 o'clock hour. Just on behalf of staff, I think I would like to extend our nothing but gratitude for the literally hundreds of hours that the commission and the volunteers that have assisted them in putting this framework together, and this presentation and this survey. couldn't have done it without you. Huge amount of gratitude for that. And then also to everyone viewing this, whether you're here live or whether you're looking at this after the fact, thank you for taking your time to try to help our community improve in the future. And you know, again, a huge amount of gratitude to that. Thank you to Martine, our Spanish translator, for being available today and making sure that this information reaches all of our community. Your efforts are very much appreciated for that. And thank you for all of our IT staff who've made this possible. So really thank you so much for that.
And thank you to all of the commissioners. And I just wanted to give the opportunity to the engagement committee who really worked so hard to put this meeting together and the presentation. Is there anything that you three would like to say in closing the meeting, and have that be the final statement for today?
I do, yeah, we have a few last words, just wanting to share that, you know, our ad hoc committee is really just tasked with bringing forward this open-armed invitation for stepping into this work alongside the commission. We are, you know, the framework process, we're truly still in the midst of the process. We have only completed a first draft. The survey is a vital part of helping us complete a second draft and getting to a final draft before we submit to council. And there is a lot of opportunities to actually show up to be a part of those additional drafts that are going to be created. So all to say that if any of this piqued your interest beyond just doing the survey and giving us your input, that we would really love to have some of your support and time and your ideas. We have all of these different working groups that are putting this together. This is truly a 100% volunteer-led effort. So we're available and open to receive you. And also just wanting to remind that the next Climate Action Commission meeting is August 13th. Our meetings are the second Thursday of every month. They start at 6:30 p.m. As at the very beginning of this, Patrick showed you how to all sign up for the agendas. And so for signing up for the agendas, you'll receive the agenda packets ahead of time and can get a little notification as well around all of that. And I really think that's it. I think those are the final points. Commissioner Gurr?
Yeah, I just, I want to reiterate, thank you for saying all of that, Commissioner Frederick. I just want to reiterate that this is an ongoing community conversation. And the conversation doesn't stop here. It doesn't stop with the survey. Please keep your eye out, and we will be extending our outreach efforts to make sure all of the voices are heard through our climate emergency framework and the plan. So thank you all for attending today, and we look forward to working with you.
All right, thank you so much. And again, please sign up if you haven't already to get notices about this. Future meetings, the video for this will be posted on the Climate Action Commission's website. So if you go to cityofpetaluma.org and type in Climate Action Commission, you'll go to that. The first link should be the Commission's webpage. The video will be there. The response to the Q&A will be there as well. So please stay tuned. And again, thank you for sharing this with your networks and making sure we reach as much of Petaluma as possible. So with that, back to you, Madam Chair, to end the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your weekend and hope to involve you in future conversations. Have a great day.
Thank you.